Imagine you break through the sealed doorway of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb, untouched for over 3,000 years, and find gold, jewels, mummies, and a story the world would never forget. But as soon as the tomb is opened, people around you begin to die. Coincidence? Bacteria? Or something darker? That's what British archaeologist Howard Carter's team had coming in 1922. Before we get into the story, if you enjoy my videos, please consider dropping me a follow. It's always very much appreciated, and drop a comment on what story you'd like me to cover next. Now, let's get into it. A wealthy earl collapses from a mosquito bite. The lights in Cairo mysteriously go out. His dog, thousands of miles away, howls and drops dead. Another team member dies from blood poisoning. A radiologist visits the tomb and dies months later. A lord, a staff member, even a relative of Howard Carter himself, all meet grim fates. This isn't a horror movie. It's a true story of what happened after the tomb of King Tutankhamun was unsealed. Welcome to the mystery of the Pharaoh's curse. Tutankhamun, often called the Boy King, ruled Egypt during the 18th dynasty. Around 1332 to 1323 BC, he ascended the throne when he was just about 9 years old, following the controversial reign of Akhenaten, who had attempted to replace Egypt's polytheistic religion with monotheism. Tutankhamun's rule, though short-lived, was critical in restoring the old gods and stabilizing the country. Despite his political role, little was known about Tutankhamun because his tomb was quickly forgotten, buried under debris in newer tombs. Unlike other pharaohs whose final resting places were looted and destroyed, Tutankhamun's tomb remained hidden and untouched. That changed in 1922 when British archaeologist Howard Carter, funded by aristocrat Lord Carnarvon, finally discovered what he had spent 6 years searching for. On November 4th, 1922, Carter's team unearthed the first step leading down into the tomb. As they broke through the sealed doors, Carter is said to have peered in by candlelight. When asked what he saw, he famously responded, "Wonderful things." Inside, they found over 5,000 artifacts, including golden statues, jewelry, chariots, musical instruments, and ornate thrones. At the center was the solid gold sarcophagus containing the mummy of Tutankhamun himself, still adorned with an intricately crafted gold mask. It was the most intact pharaonic tomb ever discovered, a historical jackpot. But the thrill of the find was soon overshadowed by fear. The tomb bore signs of protective magic. Amulets, figurines, and inscriptions hinted at divine protection. Rumors began to swirl that the tomb was cursed, and within weeks, those rumors seemed to be coming true. It should have been a triumph. Instead, it became a tragedy and the beginning of one of the most chilling legends in archaeological history. Lord Carnarvon, who financed the expedition, was the first to die. Only months after entering the tomb, he was bitten on the cheek by a mosquito. That bite got infected after he nicked its shaving, leading to blood poisoning. On April 5th, 1923, he died in Cairo after weeks of fever, delirium, and steadily worsening symptoms. The official cause was erysipelas, a severe skin infection that had reached his bloodstream. The eerie part? As he passed, all the lights in Cairo reportedly went out, an unexplained power outage at the exact moment of his death. Even stranger, back in England, his beloved terrier Susie let out a long, tormented howl and then dropped dead. Carnarvon's death ignited a firestorm in the press. His sudden and bizarre passing gave life to the idea of a curse, with headlines screaming, "Death comes on wings to he who enters the tomb." Spiritualists and occultists weighed in, suggesting that the pharaoh's spirit had awakened in vengeance. This was no longer just an archaeological triumph. It had become a dark and deadly mystery. Carnarvon was just the beginning. George J. Gould, a wealthy American railroad magnate, visited the tomb shortly after its discovery. Despite being in good health, he developed a sudden fever and died within a few days. Some speculated his immune system couldn't handle exposure to the tomb's atmosphere. Aubrey Herbert, Carnarvon's half-brother, died 5 months after him. He had long suffered from poor health and complications from eye problems. Despite undergoing an operation to try to improve his vision, he succumbed to blood poisoning, eerily mirroring Carnarvon's fate. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who conducted the first X-rays of Tutankhamun's mummy, died mysteriously not long after. Though he had no known illnesses prior to the trip, his sudden death was cited as further evidence of the curse at work. Hugh Evelyn White, a bright and promising archaeologist who worked on the tomb, took his own life in 1924. The most chilling part? He reportedly left a suicide note written in his own blood that said, "I have succumbed to a curse." Whether madness, guilt, or superstition drove him, his death only deepened the legend. In total, dozens of people connected with the tomb died within a decade, some of natural causes, others more mysteriously, but all under a long, dark shadow. Was it really a curse? Or something more natural? Modern scientists suggest some of the deaths might have been caused by toxic mold and bacteria sealed in the tomb for millennia. Opening it may have released deadly spores into the air, including fungi like Aspergillus flavus, which can cause respiratory failure, particularly in those with weakened immune systems. Some experts point to a study published in the 1990s, which showed that certain mummies contained deadly mold species that could survive thousands of years. The hot, dry, and stagnant air in the tomb would have created the perfect breeding ground for microbial life. Once disturbed, spores could have been inhaled by the unsuspecting archaeologists. Other modern theories suggest high concentrations of ammonia, formaldehyde, or hydrogen sulfide gases, all products of decomposition sealed for millennia, could have sickened tomb visitors. One scientific expedition even suggested that radiation from decayed minerals within the tomb might have been another potential risk. However, skeptics emphasize statistical probability. Out of the dozens of people who entered the tomb in the 1920s, only a handful died young or under strange circumstances. Howard Carter, the man who spent the most time in the tomb, lived until 1939, nearly 2 decades later. This contradiction has puzzled researchers for years. Some deaths might have been coincidental. Others may have involved psychological stress, where fear of the curse triggered physical symptoms, a kind of mass hysteria or psychosomatic illness. In the end, science offers explanations, but none that fully erase the aura of mystery. The curse remains one of archaeology's most chilling question marks. Were they warned? According to reports, an inscription was found near the entrance of the tomb. "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the king's peace." Whether the quote was truly there or a product of eager journalism, the legend caught fire. But curses in ancient Egypt weren't merely spooky phrases. They were serious magical practices. Egyptians believed words had power. Protective spells, or Heka, were commonly inscribed in burial chambers. These weren't meant for entertainment. They were thought to summon divine punishment for anyone who violated the sacred space. Some tombs included symbolic threats involving crocodiles, serpents, or divine retribution from gods like Osiris or Anubis. In one real example, a tomb inscription warned, "They who enter this sacred tomb shall be visited by the wings of death." That's not poetry, it's a promise. In Tutankhamun's tomb, Carter's team found amulets and hieroglyphs intended to protect the king in the afterlife. Among them were spells from the Book of the Dead, Egypt's spiritual guidebook to the underworld. Moreover, some modern Egyptologists suggest the curse could have been deliberately planted by Carter's team to keep tomb robbers and looters away, especially after the global media frenzy. Whether it was superstition or PR, it worked. Even Carter himself was said to be unnerved when his pet canary was eaten by a cobra, the symbol of the pharaoh. Some took it as the king's first warning. Real or fabricated, psychological or microbial, the curse of the tomb became more than a warning. It became a weapon of fear that echoed through the modern world. The story exploded worldwide. Newspapers couldn't get enough of the curse, running lurid headlines and interviews with mystics, spiritualists, and even magicians. Tabloids published daily updates on each new death, fueling a frenzy of speculation. One paper went as far as publishing a death tally of those affected by the curse. Conan Doyle, The famed creator of Sherlock Holmes and an outspoken spiritualist publicly blamed the deaths on elemental spirits released by the desecration of the tomb. His comments, echoed by other prominent figures, lent the curse an air of legitimacy, or at least made it more sensational. The media's obsession even led to rumors that Carter himself was being haunted, with stories of ghostly figures and strange sounds at the excavation site. Though Carter never publicly endorsed the idea of a curse, he didn't exactly go out of his way to deny it either. The allure of the mystery was too powerful. Hollywood jumped in too. The 1932 film The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff, was directly inspired by the hysteria surrounding Tutankhamun's tomb. The idea of ancient curses, restless spirits, and forbidden knowledge entered pop culture and never left. Radio shows, novels, and eventually TV documentaries continued to revisit the tale. For the public, the Pharaoh's curse was more than a story. It was a symbol of mankind's hubris in disturbing the past, a reminder that some doors should remain closed. The curse had crossed from archaeology into myth, from history into entertainment, and the world was captivated. To this day, no one can say for sure what caused the wave of deaths. Maybe it was mold, maybe coincidence, or maybe a powerful symbol of fear and guilt wrapped in sand and shadow. The theory of a curse has survived for over a century, not because of hard evidence, but because of its eerie consistency and our collective need to find meaning in tragedy. For many, the curse became a psychological truth, a story that felt real because it offered structure to the unexplained. Even skeptics admit the cluster of mysterious deaths, the strange animal behavior, the electricity failures, and the fearful expressions on some deathbeds are difficult to entirely dismiss. Then there are the spiritual interpretations. Some believe the deaths were the pharaoh's revenge for disturbing his slumber. Others claimed ancient magic had finally worked. Mediums and occultists held seances, trying to commune with Tutankhamun himself. One psychic allegedly warned that opening the tomb would release forces that should remain buried. That warning was dismissed at the time, but after the deaths began piling up, it resurfaced with ominous weight. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the tomb became a symbol of both pride and mystery. Locals would tell visitors to show respect at the site or face consequences. Some refused to go near entirely. In a strange irony, Tutankhamun, a relatively minor pharaoh during his life, became one of the most famous rulers in history. His name is now synonymous with golden treasure, divine mystery, and death. The boy king may have died young, but in a strange twist of fate, his tomb gave him eternal life, not as a god, but as a legend that haunts us still. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to check many more on my channel and subscribe so you don't miss what's to come.